Peter sat behind the wheel of his car, his hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. It was a moonless night, and the darkness seemed to envelop the winding road ahead. He had always enjoyed driving at night, finding solace in the quiet solitude. But tonight was different. Tonight, there was an unexplained unease that hung in the air, making him second-guess his decision to take this drive. He had been feeling restless lately, plagued by a series of vivid nightmares that left him drenched in sweat and gasping for air. The dreams were a jumble of fragmented images and indiscernible whispers, always ending abruptly with a sense of impending doom. Peter couldn't shake off the feeling that these nightmares held some deeper meaning, a warning of sorts. As he drove further into the night, the road ahead became increasingly desolate. The only source of light came from his headlights, cutting through the darkness like a fragile lifeline. The trees lining the road seemed to sway ominously, casting eerie shadows that danced in the periphery of his vision. His heart pounded in his chest as he pushed forward, trying to suppress the rising fear. Suddenly, Peter's eyes caught a glimpse of something in the distance. It was a figure standing by the side of the road, partially obscured by the gloom. As he approached, he could make out the silhouette of a woman, her long hair billowing in the wind. His instincts screamed at him to keep driving, but his curiosity got the better of him. He slowed down and rolled down the window, calling out to the woman, "Are you all right? Do you need any help?" The woman turned towards him, her face pale and eyes hollow. She opened her mouth as if to speak, but only emitted a low, guttural sound that sent chills down Peter's spine. Panic surged through his veins as he slammed on the gas pedal, accelerating away from the mysterious woman. His mind raced, trying to make sense of what had just transpired. Was it a trick of the light, or had he stumbled upon something far more sinister? He glanced at the rearview mirror, half expecting to see the woman chasing after him, but there was nothing but the empty road behind. The night grew darker, and Peter's fear intensified. He couldn't shake off the feeling that he was being watched. Every sound, every shadow seemed to take on a malevolent presence. He kept driving, desperate to put as much distance as possible between himself and whatever haunted this forsaken road. Hours passed, and exhaustion threatened to overwhelm Peter. He felt the weariness seep into his bones, his eyelids heavy with sleep. But he knew he couldn't stop. Not until he found some semblance of safety or reached his destination, whichever came first. As he rounded a bend, his headlights illuminated an old roadside motel nestled amidst the darkness. A flickering neon sign proclaimed its vacancy, offering a glimmer of hope in the abyss. Peter pulled into the parking lot and parked his car, breathing a sigh of relief. Entering the dimly lit lobby, he found himself face to face with a tired-looking woman behind the counter. Her eyes widened at the sight of him, as if she had seen a ghost. You shouldn't be here," she stammered. Peter's heart skipped a beat. "Why? What's wrong?" The woman leaned closer, her voice barely above a whisper. "This place, it's cursed. Those who stay never leave." Peter's heart raced as he absorbed the woman's words. The weight of the situation pressed upon him, and he wondered if he had unwittingly stumbled into a trap. But he had no choice. Fatigue gnawed at his every fiber, and the road ahead offered no respite. Reluctantly, he decided to take his chances and spend the night at the motel, albeit with a heightened sense of caution. The woman handed him a rusted key, her trembling hand betraying her fear. "Room 13, she whispered, her voice laden with a mix of dread and resignation. "May whatever gods watch over you." Unease settled over Peter as he made his way down the dimly lit corridor, the flickering light bulbs casting eerie shadows on the peeling wallpaper. Room 13 stood at the end, its door slightly ajar. He hesitated, his instincts urging him to turn back, but weariness prevailed. Pushing the door open, Peter stepped into the room. The air was heavy with an indescribable energy, an unsettling presence that prickled his skin. The room itself was a relic of a forgotten era, filled with worn-out furniture and faded memories. It seemed frozen in time, an echo of the past. As he settled onto the creaky bed, Peter's mind replayed the events of the night, trying to unravel the mysteries that surrounded him. Who was the woman on the road, and why had she emitted such an otherworldly sound? And what did the woman at the front desk mean by cursed? Minutes stretched into hours, and sleep eluded him. The minutes turned into an eternity, each passing second amplified by the silence that enveloped the room. Suddenly, a sound pierced through the stillness, a faint scratching coming from behind the walls. Peter's heart raced as he listened, his imagination conjuring up grotesque creatures lurking just out of sight. With a shudder, Peter decided to investigate. He reached for the bedside lamp, but the moment his fingers brushed against the switch, the room plunged into darkness. Panic welled up within him as he fumbled for his phone, the feeble glow illuminating his trembling hands. Using the faint light as his guide, Peter made his way toward the source of the scratching. The sound grew louder, more insistent, leading him to a section of the wall that seemed oddly discolored. With a surge of adrenaline, he pushed aside a faded painting, revealing a hidden compartment. Inside, he found a weathered journal, its pages yellowed with age. Curiosity consumed him as he flipped through its entries, realizing it chronicled the stories of previous guests, accounts of unexplainable phenomena, strange noises, and inexplicable disappearances. The entries ceased abruptly, as if the writer had met a tragic end. Fear gripped Peter's heart as he read one particular passage, the words etched with desperation. "They're watching, always watching. We're trapped in this cursed place, forever tormented by our own fears. Don't come here, or you'll join us in this never-ending nightmare." The realization washed over him like a cold wave. The motel had become a breeding ground for lost souls, a purgatory from which no one escaped. Peter's heart pounded in his chest as he understood the gravity of his situation. He was trapped, surrounded by an unseen force that fed on fear and despair. A sense of dread settled over Peter, his mind racing for a way to escape the clutches of the cursed motel. He clutched the journal tightly, as if holding onto it could somehow protect him from the malevolent forces that lurked within. With a surge of determination, Peter decided he had to find a way to break free from this nightmarish prison. He made his way back to the room, his senses on high alert, ready to face whatever awaited him. As he stepped into the dimly lit room, the air grew heavier, suffocating him with its oppressive presence. Shadows seemed to dance and twist, mocking his desperate attempts to find a way out. But Peter refused to succumb to despair. He knew he had to uncover the motel's dark secrets if he wanted any chance of survival. Driven by a mixture of fear and curiosity, Peter delved deeper into the journal's entries. He discovered tales of restless spirits, vengeful apparitions, and the tragic stories of those who had met their untimely demise within the motel's walls. Each account painted a chilling picture of the trapped souls, forever bound to this cursed place. Guided by these accounts, Peter discovered a pattern, a series of hidden symbols and markings scattered throughout the motel. They seemed to hold the key to the curse, a faint glimmer of hope amidst the encroaching darkness. Armed with this newfound knowledge, Peter ventured out of his room, navigating the labyrinthine hallways. Every step he took seemed to echo through the corridors, amplifying his growing unease. He followed the trail of symbols, determined to unravel the curse's secrets and put an end to the nightmare. As he approached the heart of the motel, a door stood before him, adorned with intricate carvings and symbols. It beckoned him, as if it held the answers he sought. With trembling hands, Peter pushed it open, revealing a hidden chamber bathed in an ethereal glow. The room pulsed with an otherworldly energy, its walls adorned with ancient symbols and enigmatic writings. In the center, an altar stood, adorned with a single flickering candle. Peter felt drawn to it, compelled by an invisible force. He approached cautiously, the journal still clutched tightly in his hand. With a trembling voice, Peter began to recite the words he had uncovered, invoking a ritual meant to break the curse. The air crackled with an electric energy, and he felt a powerful surge coursing through his veins. The room trembled, and the symbols on the walls glowed with an intense brilliance. Suddenly, a blinding light filled the chamber, and Peter shielded his eyes. When he opened them, he found himself standing outside the motel, the darkness lifting as dawn broke on the horizon. The curse had been broken, and the spirits that had haunted him were now at peace. As Peter made his way back to his car, he couldn't help but feel a mixture of relief and sadness. The motel had claimed so many lives, and he had narrowly escaped its clutches. The horrors he had experienced would forever be etched into his memory, a reminder of the night drive that had led him to the edge of his sanity. But as he drove away, leaving the cursed motel behind, Peter vowed to carry on, to embrace life with a newfound appreciation. He would never forget the night he confronted his deepest fears, emerging stronger on the other side. Lance sat behind the wheel of his car, his hands gripping the steering wheel tightly. The night was pitch black, and the road ahead stretched out like a mysterious abyss. He was embarking on a long drive to visit his sister, who lived in a remote town hours away. The radio crackled with static, failing to provide any sort of distraction from the eerie silence that enveloped the night. Lance had always enjoyed the solitude of driving at night, finding it peaceful and calming. But tonight was different. As he navigated the winding road, a strange feeling of unease washed over him. He couldn't shake off the sensation that he was being watched, that something sinister lurked in the darkness just beyond his headlights. His mind raced with thoughts of what could be out there. The stories he had heard growing up in this region didn't help either. Tales of ghostly apparitions wandering the lonely roads at night, or of strange creatures that came out only when the moon hid behind the clouds. Lance tried to dismiss these thoughts as mere superstitions, but a nagging doubt gnawed at the back of his mind. As he drove deeper into the night, Lance's anxiety grew. Every shadow, every rustle of leaves in the wind made him jump. His eyes strained to see beyond the limited reach of his headlights, searching for any sign of danger. He could feel his heart pounding in his chest, its rhythm matching the drumming rain that began to fall, further obscuring his vision. Just when Lance was about to turn back, he saw a faint light up ahead. Relief washed over him as he realized it was a gas station. He pulled into the small, dimly lit lot, grateful for the chance to collect himself. As he stepped out of the car, he noticed a figure standing near the pumps. It was a tall, shadowy figure, dressed in tattered clothes. Lance approached cautiously, his nerves still on edge. As he got closer, he could see the figure more clearly. It was an old man, his face weathered and lined with deep wrinkles. His eyes held a haunted look, and his voice trembled as he spoke. "Son, you shouldn't be out here alone at night," the old man said, his voice barely above a whisper. "There's something evil that roams these roads after dark. It preys on lost souls like us." Lance's heart raced, and a chill ran down his spine. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice barely audible. The old man's eyes darted nervously around. "There's a legend," he said, his voice filled with a mix of fear and resignation. "A curse that haunts this town. They say that anyone who drives these roads alone at night will never make it to their destination." Lance's breath caught in his throat. The old man's words echoed in his mind, fueling his fear. But he couldn't let his imagination get the better of him. He had come this far, and couldn't turn back now. With a nod of gratitude, Lance got back into his car and resumed his journey. The old man's warning lingered in his thoughts, but he tried to push it aside. He gripped the steering wheel tightly, determined to reach his sister's house despite the foreboding atmosphere that surrounded him. As he continued down the road, the rain intensified, battering his windshield and making it even harder to see. The wipers struggled to keep up, creating a distorted view of the road ahead. Lance strained his eyes, desperately searching for any landmarks to assure him that he was on the right path. Suddenly, a loud noise erupted from under the hood of his car, and the vehicle shuddered to a halt. Lance's heart sank as he realized he was stranded in the middle of nowhere in the dead of night. Panic threatened to consume him as he tried the ignition again and again, but the engine refused to start. Lance's mind raced. What was he going to do? He reached for his phone, hoping for a signal, but the screen remained blank. He was completely alone, trapped in his car with no way of reaching out for help. The feeling of being watched returned, stronger than ever. Then, through the rain-soaked windshield, he saw it, a pair of glowing eyes, fixed on him from the darkness. Lance's heart skipped a beat as he locked eyes with the mysterious creature lurking in the shadows. Its piercing gaze seemed to penetrate his very soul, sending shivers down his spine. He frantically searched for any means of escape, but his efforts proved futile. Trapped in his motionless car, he could only watch as the creature slowly approached, its movements graceful yet menacing. As it drew nearer, Lance's fear transformed into a paralyzing terror. The creature revealed itself in the dim glow of his headlights. It was a monstrous wolf, twice the size of a regular one, with fur as black as the night itself. Its eyes continued to burn with an otherworldly intensity, captivating Lance in their malevolent gaze. Lance's mind raced for a way out. Desperation fueled his instincts, and he remembered the old man's words about lost souls. Perhaps there was a way to break free from this curse. Summoning every ounce of courage, he opened the car door and stepped out into the pouring rain, locking eyes with the creature. "Who are you?" Lance shouted, his voice trembling with a mix of fear and determination. The creature's lips curled into a sinister smile, revealing razor-sharp teeth. It spoke in a voice that echoed through the night, chilling Lance to the bone. "I am the spirit that haunts these forsaken roads. You dared to challenge the curse, and now you shall be mine." Lance refused to succumb to the creature's threats. He took a step forward, defiance burning in his eyes. "I won't let you claim me. I will find a way to break this curse." The creature snarled, its fur bristling with anger. It lunged at Lance, but he managed to dodge its attack just in time. Adrenaline surged through his veins as he sprinted into the surrounding woods, the creature hot on his trail. Lance pushed himself beyond his limits, fear giving him strength. Through the rain-soaked trees, he spotted an old dilapidated cabin nestled in a clearing. His heart raced with hope as he realized it might offer him sanctuary. Ignoring his exhaustion, he sprinted towards the cabin, the creature's growls growing louder behind him. Lance burst through the cabin's creaking door, his breathing heavy and ragged. He quickly barricaded it with whatever furniture he could find, desperately hoping to buy himself some time. Alone in the darkness, he knew that his struggle was far from over. With every passing moment, the creature circled the cabin, its growls resonating through the night. Lance's mind raced, searching for a solution. Then he remembered a story he had once heard. A tale of a cursed amulet hidden deep within these woods, said to possess the power to break the curse. Driven by desperation, Lance made up his mind. He would face the creature head-on and retrieve the amulet, even if it meant risking his life. The thought of his sister waiting for him gave him the strength to press on. As the rain continued to pour outside, Lance ventured into the darkness, his heart pounding in his chest. Armed with determination, he trekked through the treacherous woods, guided only by his unwavering resolve. Branches snapped beneath his feet, and the haunting cries of nocturnal creatures filled the air, heightening his sense of foreboding. After what felt like an eternity, Lance stumbled upon a hidden clearing, illuminated by a single beam of moonlight. In the center stood a decrepit tree, its gnarled branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. Hanging from one of its branches was a pendant, the cursed amulet. With bated breath, Lance reached for the amulet, his hand trembling. As his fingers closed around it, a surge of energy coursed through his body, a mix of ancient power and raw determination. He knew he had to return to the cabin and face the creature once and for all. With the amulet clutched tightly in his hand, Lance retraced his steps, his resolve unyielding. He returned to the cabin, ready to confront the creature that had haunted his night drive. As he unbarred the door, he steeled himself for the final battle, determined to break the curse and emerge victorious. With a mighty roar, the creature lunged at Lance, teeth bared and claws slashing through the air. But Lance held the amulet high, its light pulsating with an otherworldly glow. As the creature made contact with the amulet, a brilliant flash erupted, engulfing both Lance and the creature in blinding light. When the light subsided, Lance found himself standing alone in the cabin. The creature had vanished, leaving only a lingering sense of malevolence behind. The curse had been broken. Exhausted but victorious, Lance made his way back to his car and continued his journey through the rain-soaked night. The darkness that had once held him captive seemed less daunting now, and a newfound sense of freedom filled his heart. As the first rays of dawn broke through the clouds, Lance finally arrived at his sister's house. With a weary smile, he realized that the night drive, despite its perils, had changed him. He had faced his deepest fears and emerged stronger on the other side. From that day forward, Lance would carry the memory of that harrowing night drive as a reminder of the resilience of the human spirit. Robert had always enjoyed the solitude of driving at night. The empty roads, the hum of the engine, and the soft glow of the streetlights created an ambience that soothed his restless soul. It was his way of escaping the chaos of daily life, if only for a few hours. One fateful evening, Robert decided to embark on a night drive like no other. He had heard rumors of an abandoned mansion hidden deep within the woods, a place that held a dark and mysterious past. The stories intrigued him, and he couldn't resist the temptation to uncover the truth. As he navigated the winding roads, Robert's anticipation grew. The headlights pierced through the darkness, illuminating the path ahead. The air became cooler, and an eerie silence enveloped the surroundings. It was as if nature itself was holding its breath, aware of the impending encounter. Finally, Robert reached the entrance of the dense forest that concealed the hidden mansion. He parked his car and stepped out, his footsteps echoing in the stillness of the night. He ventured deeper into the woods, guided only by the pale moonlight filtering through the thick canopy. After what felt like an eternity, Robert caught sight of the mansion. It stood tall and imposing, its crumbling facade telling tales of forgotten memories. The windows were shattered, and ivy clung to the decaying walls. It was a haunting sight, but Robert's curiosity overpowered his unease. As he cautiously stepped inside, the musty smell of neglect assaulted his senses. The floorboards creaked beneath his weight, as if whispering secrets from the past. Each room he explored revealed remnants of a life once lived. A torn photograph, an old rocking chair, and a broken clock frozen in time. But as Robert delved deeper into the mansion, a sense of foreboding washed over him. Shadows danced on the walls, and a chilling breeze rustled through the corridors. The air grew heavy, and every step he took seemed to echo with invisible footsteps. Just as he was about to turn back, a faint cry broke the silence. Robert's heart skipped a beat. He followed the sound, his apprehension giving way to concern. The cry led him to a locked door at the end of a long hallway. His trembling hand reached for the handle, and with a deep breath, he turned it. The door creaked open, revealing a room engulfed in darkness. Robert's heart raced as he cautiously stepped inside, his eyes struggling to adjust to the lack of light. He fumbled for his phone and turned on the flashlight, illuminating the room's eerie contents. There, in the center of the room, lay a child, shivering and terrified. Robert's heart ached at the sight. "Are you okay?" he asked, his voice trembling with a mix of concern and fear. The child looked up at him, eyes wide with desperation. "Please, help me," the child whispered, their voice filled with a haunting desperation. "They're coming for me." Robert's instincts kicked in, and he knew he had to act quickly. He scooped up the child, holding them tightly in his arms, and began to make his way out of the room. But as he turned to leave, a chilling breeze swept through the corridor, extinguishing his flashlight. Panic surged through Robert's veins as darkness enveloped him. He could hear distant footsteps echoing through the mansion, growing louder with each passing second. His heart pounded in his chest as he frantically searched for an exit, his mind racing with thoughts of what awaited them in the shadows. Using his hands as his guide, Robert stumbled forward, his every step uncertain. The air grew colder, and a suffocating sense of malevolence seemed to hang in the darkness. He had to find a way out, for his own safety and the child's. Just as despair began to consume him, a faint glimmer caught his attention. A sliver of moonlight seeped through a cracked window, beckoning him towards it. Robert's hope rekindled, and he followed the dim light, praying it would lead them to freedom. With each step, the child's grip tightened, their trust in Robert unyielding. The mansion seemed to resist their escape, its sinister presence manipulating the surroundings to keep them trapped. But Robert's determination burned bright, and he pressed forward, refusing to succumb to the darkness that threatened to swallow them whole. Finally, they reached the cracked window. Robert pushed it open, and a rush of cool night air filled the room. He climbed out, holding onto the child, and landed on the overgrown lawn with a thud. Relief washed over him as he realized they were free from the mansion's clutches. But as he turned to ensure the child's safety, he found himself alone. The child had vanished, leaving behind only a lingering sense of sadness and a whispered voice in the wind, thanking Robert for his bravery. As Robert stood there, bewildered and filled with unanswered questions, he realized that some mysteries were not meant to be solved. The abandoned mansion held secrets that would forever remain locked away in its decrepit walls. With a heavy heart, Robert made his way back to his car, his mind filled with the haunting memory of the child's plea for help. The night drive that was meant to be an escape had turned into a night of confronting darkness and discovering the limits of his own courage. To this day, Robert wonders about the child and the true nature of the abandoned mansion. But one thing is certain, his night drive had forever changed him, reminding him that even in the darkest of places, a glimmer of hope can guide us through the most terrifying of experiences.